All right, welcome to my newest edition here for YouTube, and I'm also doing this as a private show on Blog Talk Radio. My camera, unfortunately, is out of commission, and I got to get a new camera. So with that being said, here I'm going to actually get things rolling here a little more here with what I want to talk about here today. Today I want to talk more about the future of two teams in the NFL. I want to do a little bit of football talk here. I want to talk about both the Miami Dolphins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for both teams, and I'm doing this because with the Wacko Radio Network and what I do on Blog Talk Radio, starting my network up there and whatnot, is that there are the two teams, the Miami Dolphins and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are more specifically what most of the people who are on my network that are football fans follow. And both teams need help. Both teams do. The Dolphins are always good at average seasons. They've seemed to make that a thing that they excel at. I think the best they've ever been in the past 10 years has probably been 10-6. And if you look at let's not even go 10 years. Let's go 15 years. Since 2000, we've seen the Dolphins go to the playoffs and get through and be lucky to get past the first week. When 2000 first started. Then you look at what happened with the Dolphins over years after that, with the exception to the first year of the Parcells regime and them doing real sandlot football, real wildcat plays. They did go 10-6, and they did go to the playoffs. They lost in the first week, which showed how flukish that was for the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have always been known to have years of when they first started, and we'll move right away right up to Joe Philbin. Since Joe Philbin has been the Dolphins head coach, he's been more or less, used to getting. He got them from a 10-6 record to a 7-9 record, and now has 2 years of them going 8-8. And Philbin, he's going to be going into this in the last year of his contract, and the question was, should we replace Philbin or not? Now, if the Dolphins went 10-6 and still missed out on the playoffs, I would say no, because it would show that Philbin made improvement. And it really does show that he had made improvements, but he really doesn't have that offensive line that he really needs to have. And I know a lot of it has to do with a lot of players being overworked on that offensive line, especially where someone like Mike Pouncey goes, because he wasn't going to be able to come back till the midway point of the season, more than half the season missed, I believe. And the Dolphins really just simply struggled for the most part. They really did struggle. There are times where they looked good, and you always seem to get a Dolphin team that could get themselves into the playoffs and even stand a chance at winning their division. They're a team that starts off strong, but they don't finish strong, is really the best way to put it. If I were to look at this Dolphin team, and I know that I have a friend who I know will be listening to this on YouTube, and I'll be talking about his Buccaneers. I got a few Buccaneer fans out there too, I should say. If I were to look at this with the Dolphins, some of the nonsense Joe Philbin said, I almost now have to say, to some extent, made sense. He really put everything on the offense. He really shouldn't, because his defense really needs help, especially in secondary. But he said something that made some sense there. But it also leads to some of the things that go on there too. Number one, if you don't have enough protection for Ryan Tannehill really can't throw the ball. And Ryan Tannehill, I heard they've always worked with him during practice to work on his long pass. Now, if you look at Ryan Tannehill, he still has a problem throwing the long pass. That is still a big problem for him. Ryan Tannehill, I like him. I think he's the best quarterback you had since Dan Marino. And yes, I'll put him over the 1 year that we had Chad Pennington. But at the same time, I look at this and I said, you need someone who's going to be more the thinking man's quarterback, who can think fast in the clutch, which is why I've always said in shows, especially my Wacko in the Morning shows, that Matt Moore should be a guy that they give a shot to. He can throw the long ball. He can. He's shown very few times, although it has happened, that he could come back from adversity. Now, Matt Moore is pretty much a free agent. He made $5.5 million with the Dolphins. I don't think they're going to re-sign him, and I think a lot of that has to do with the cap and what they're going to be doing in free agency and with trades, because mark my words, the Dolphins are going to get a top-of-the-line guard in free agency. Because, and I'm also saying that too, because I don't think Samson Satali is going to re-sign either. I don't think the Dolphins will re-sign him unless they make Samson Satali into a guard, which is what I think he should be. Samson Satali probably had his best year this year with the Dolphins. I will say that, but you need something more. You need something better. Where Samson Satali goes. So I'd find the best available guard in free agency, and I would even find the best available two guards and see about paying them the money, which is why you got to justify losing Matt Moore. And they're probably going to lose some of their other guards that they put on for one season that weren't able to get it done. If they could get two top of the line guards for both the left and right side. Think about it. You have Brandon Albert, you have Jawan James. You also have backing you up, who's also done a great job himself too as a guard in Dallas Thomas. Yeah, you'll really have something special there. And maybe go into the draft and maybe in the second round pick up another offensive tackle in the second round, not the first, because you can find yourself a great offensive tackle in the second round. All depends how the Dolphins wheel and deal. One of my big suggestions, though, is, and I know it's not possible to happen unless there's a team willing to pay all that guaranteed money that he will get from Miami to go elsewhere, would be if you could get away with a trade for Mike Wallace. Now, I say this for one reason, and everyone says Tannehill's got to have more options, and I understand that perfectly. See if you can do a trade there with him. You have guaranteed money, and you would want to free that money up during the cap, so another team would have to pay that money back to you. But a team also at the same time would almost trade dollar for dollar just to get that, and then you can wheel and deal with that one. But Dallas Thomas would go and in truth, not Dallas Thomas, excuse me, because I'm going to mention the Dallas Cowboys here in a moment. But with Dez Bryant, who I want to mention, with him being a free agent from the Dallas Cowboys, if the Dolphins could slickly sign him and get off with a trade, that'll also guarantee the money back that's guaranteed to a guy like a Mike Wallace. I think that would be a great move. It would be great to have both Dez Bryant and Mike Wallace on the same team together, preferably here in Miami. But I don't think that'll happen with the salary cap the way it is. If the Dolphins were smart in this case, they have the 14th overall pick. There's also talk that the Dolphins may wheel and deal to try to trade up, which would probably mean getting rid of a key player and your first round pick and moving up and maybe getting that team's second round pick as well too. And the only team I could really see maybe trading down that really has a significantly higher pick than number 14 would be, truthfully, I don't know if they'll do it. They might just wait till the second round to pick up a running back, would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that's all I could see happening there with that. But let's keep going on here. I don't want to waste too much time on this. I know I'm going to take up a lot of time on this one, but for the Dolphins, if they were to move up to the third pick, they would need to do what they would need to do a lot of scouting before they did that. Last time they moved up to the third pick, they basically picked up Dion Jordan, and Dion Jordan didn't do anything for them this year. If I were to find anything, I would find a way to release Dion Jordan because he's still getting first-round draft money. Again, free up money in the cap. He's done nothing for you. And if I'm the Dolphins, I'm getting one of two players with that third-round pick. The best linebacker or the best safety in the draft. That's what I think the Dolphins should do. I know a lot of people, if you're listening to this on YouTube or listening to this on Blog Talk, you might disagree with me here, but Dolphins need a lot of secondary help, and I really personally think they should go in and pick up a safety. Even if they still have a 14th pick, I would go safety if I'm the Dolphins. They need secondary help probably more than they need help anywhere else. Now, if they could sign another cornerback that's on the same level as a Brent Grimes in free agency, that's great. If you got a cornerback that will have the same type of future that a Brent Grimes has, that'll be great. But the Dolphins have to work on their defense. A lot of people have often talked, and I've looked at a lot of social sites that have conversations going on about the Dolphins where Jared Odrick goes. Truthfully, I think there are defensive tackles out there better than Jared Odrick, and I would get one of them in free agency. I think there's going to be a lot of availables in free agency. Now, if you can't get you replace Jared Odrick, then maybe you go defensive tackle in the first round. That's an option. But I think linebacker or safety is where they really need to go. I think you can find a very good defensive tackle there in free agency. And like I said about the offensive line, there's just a lot that can be said there with that one. I know that a lot could be said about this, and I know that I got a lot of good friends out there, primarily one who is listening to me as I'm doing this right now, and I know we'll check this out on YouTube, is my good friend Chris, who goes by the Mayor, with his show After Further Review. And I'm going to, and I want to get on his team, the Bucs, and him, and of course, not just him being a Dolph fan, but a Bucs fan, but also Sonny Cruz, who has his show, the Sonny Cruz Show, and he hosts a show with Chris too called what was the name of his show again? Oh man, but it's it doesn't much matter now. I'll get it all right when the time comes. But the Sports House with Sonny and Chris, that's the name of it. And basically, they're Bucs fans, and I've talked to them during the season. I talked to them even before the season started. There was a lot of talk about the Bucs, and especially everyone was happy that the Bucs got Lovie Smith as their head coach. I think it was a great move that He became their head coach too. I will say though that I think the Bucs are a team that's ready for improvement now. The first year, and I want to say this to a lot of people, Lovie Smith was not going to turn this team around the first year. A lot of people say Lovie Smith made the team worse. A lot of people think Lovie Smith's job should be on the line. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you're a head coach and you're taking over a team, you're going to take a hit before things pick up. And that's the thing that goes on. Reality is, and I want to say this about coaching here before I go on about the Bucs. Reality is coaches are not supposed to turn a team around in a year or 2 years. A lot of people want to say Nick Saban was a failure in the NFL with the Dolphins. That's just not true. That's just not true. Nick Saban got lucky and got on a winning streak his first year with the Dolphins. They still missed out on the playoffs, but I believe when they got to like the halfway point, Nick Saban went on a winning streak that went straight through till the end of the season. Then Nick Saban had the season that wasn't so good, and everyone thought Nick Saban was frustrated and didn't want to stick around. Truth is, there are a lot of things happening because he, of course, had to live in South Florida. We were threatened by a lot of hurricanes, number one, which he talked about, and truthfully, he was already getting the offers to go back into college football. He got a deal similar to what you saw happen with most recently now with Jim Harbaugh to go back into college coaching, to coach for Alabama. Who wouldn't jump on that? And it wasn't just that. Nick Saban, when you're the head coach of the college football, you're pretty much the head coach and the general manager. Your staff, you're basically staffing the people that are going to be your scouts, that are going to be your to get people to play for your college team and to go to the college you coach for. You're also basically also at the same time picking out your assistants, your coordinators, and everyone underneath you in coaching, down to the point to where you're picking the players. Nick Saban didn't have that option. I know that they said they gave him more power. They gave him more power over the team than the general manager, but the general manager still had his hand on the team. He was not head coach and general manager, which Nick Saban probably should have been. But reality is, you don't start to see a turnaround with a team with a new coach for at least 3 seasons. It usually takes the 3rd season for you guys, for teams to start seeing the turnaround. Now, if they really don't turn around and they're stuck in average or in last place after 4, maybe 5 seasons, definitely 5, that's when you go and you start replacing. But things aren't supposed to happen in 1 season or 2 seasons with a new coach. So lay off of Lovie Smith. You know, he knew. I think Lovie Smith knew what was going to happen with this team before it happened. So that's number one. Number two, if I question anything with Lovie Smith, it would be insisting on using Josh McCown instead of Mike Glennon. Now, Mike Glennon is not the be-all, end-all of quarterbacks. He would definitely be a glorified backup quarterback, but Glennon is a much better choice than Josh McCown. Now, we definitely know Josh McCown's not going to be around after this season. Glennon might still be around, but McCown might not. But if you do get rid of both of them, if you want to get a good backup, the Redskins pretty much didn't have Colt McCoy signed. And I know Colt McCoy has a problem with injuries, which is maybe why you want to keep Glennon over McCoy. But you do have some experience there in Colt McCoy, and Colt McCoy's hungry. Colt McCoy finds a way to win. So you may want to go with him. He would probably cost just as much as Mike Glennon does. And we already know they're going to definitely go and pick up a quarterback in the draft. I think they're going to go with the Oregon Ducks quarterback. I don't think they're going to try and go with the most popular, talked about one in Winston. I think it's going to be Mariota. So I'm going to get that out of the way right now. So, but and either way, they're picking up a quarterback with that first pick. They're not going to trade down or anything unless they were to. Now, if they wanted to trade down and still have a feeling out process going on, but at the same time show improvement, then maybe trade down and maybe get a guy like a Matt Moore to be your quarterback. And there are a lot of Miami Dolphin players that are free agents now that the Bucs could go for. And if I were them, I would consider revamping that entire overpaid offensive line, because you could get players that are better but get them cheaper and get them to 2 to 3 year contracts while you're rebuilding. One of them, and people will say, why are you mentioning his name? I mentioned it a lot, is Richard Incognito. You could get him for $500,000-600,000 a season instead of having a $2 million a season player out there playing on the offensive line. Because whoever your quarterback's going to be, you want to guarantee better protection. Samson Satali. I personally have always said Samson Satali would probably do better as a guard than a center, but centers are hard to come by, and the type of season Samson Satali had, he deserves to get with a team that's going to keep him maybe 2 to 3 more seasons. I would sign him. He would probably cost you the same amount he was here in Miami, which was $1.8 million. I heard they're paying $2.5 to a center they had there. I could be wrong. Don't quote me. I know they have a defensive tackle that they pay $6 million a season to. Now, I'm not going to knock him, but I would move him from the left tackle to right tackle. And if I were them, I would try to find a best available free agent tackle that is better on the left side. And that's how I would rebuild that the offensive side of the ball. I would even bring in Matt Moore and maybe keep him for a couple seasons. But I do think they are going to go quarterback, so I don't think that's going to happen. Let's say hypothetically they bring in a Colt McCoy and Matt Moore. Matt Moore, you're obviously going to have to pay millions to, a few million. I would sign Matt Moore for a good 2 to 3 seasons. Matt Moore would probably be the best backup quarterback in the NFL today. As a starter, he would probably be somewhere between average and good. In fact, I don't even know why I would say average. I think Matt Moore is probably the best dark horse to never really get a chance in the NFL. But I would sign Matt Moore. Matt Moore, you got the passers. If you could, and if you could get away with trading down and maybe getting a few extra picks in the second round, and maybe get a late pick in the first, that's what I would do if I'm the Bucs. That's what I would do. And you get yourself another guard, maybe with a second round pick. You start working on the defensive side of the ball, and I would take for your defensive tackle. I would go right away, get another ex-Dolphin player who could get it done better as a defensive tackle, in my opinion. Because Lovie Smith is a defensive-minded guy, and he would buff up and toughen him up so much that he would do a lot more than he did here in Miami. And that, of course, is with Jared Odrick. Sign him. Then go into the draft and pick up, maybe pick up and work on your defense a little more, and pick up a defensive end. Now I'm talking hypothetically now. Keep this in mind that if they were to move from their number 1 pick down, and maybe get a late pick, and maybe a team that has a pick, later pick in the first round also has maybe 2 picks in the second round, and again trade for that. Because if you could do that, you still got the first overall pick in the second round, and that's where, like I said, you could probably get yourself another guard that way, another offensive guard. But and hypothetically, let's say you got Jared Odrick, you got yourself a defensive end, And let's just say you got 2 more picks, and we're talking the hypothetics here, and they're later on in the draft. You could get maybe a cornerback, and maybe even go and pick up. And then this is one that's hard to pick up, but you find a lot of good ones in the second and third rounds of the draft. But I would look in the second round and see if it's worth it to pick up a nose tackle. That's what I would do. I think those moves alone would not only improve on the Bucs, but free up money in the cap to where you could go into free agency and get some better players. Now, if you get away with trading Jackson, I know that they've talked about making a trade there, or Vincent Jackson goes. If you could trade him. See if you could get a second round pick for him, and have yet your total of second round picks be 4. You get yourself a brand new young kid as a wide receiver, someone your quarterback can throw to, and you also invest in a running back. I would also look in free agency too, and this would be the other thing I would do in free agency, see if I could fill a spot on my linebacker with someone that's going to be a lot better through free agency. These are the type of things that I think need to be done by the Bucs and Lovie Smith. So if they could, like I said, if they could trade down and maybe have themselves 2 extra picks in the second round with a late first round pick instead, that would be great. That's as long as they could sign a guy like a Matt Moore and a Colt McCoy, and just simply release Josh McCown because he was a joke, and maybe pick up a Colt McCoy as a backup. Mike Glennon, there are a lot of teams that do like Mike Glennon. If you could get away with a trade for him, that's great. You'd probably get a 4th round pick. But I think Lovie Smith has a handle on what he wants to do. This is what I would do. Get yourself some veterans up front as far as an offensive line goes. Mix them in with some new guys for the offensive line. Like I said, I'd only keep one person from that offensive line on the Bucs. That's it. Rest of it should come through free agency and through the draft. It would be much better than what you had, and trust me, be much cheaper than the overpaid crap that you had out there already. Same thing with the Dolphins. The Dolphins, this is Joe Philbin's last chance. If I'm the Dolphins, see if you can get away with signing Des Bryant, and at the same time trading Mike Wallace to a team that could really use him. That would be willing to pay the money. Get yourself some extra picks in the second round doing that. That helps you out. I was also big on this one too. If you could find a stronger person than Brandon Albert in free agency that's not so injury prone, then you could get away with trading Brandon Albert for maybe a second round pick too. But I don't think Brandon Albert's going to be that easy to replace in free agency. I think he was the best that would ever be in free agency to get signed right away, especially by the Dolphins. But that's my take on Miami as well now too. Joe Philbin's last chance. Get that offensive line filled primarily through free agencies with the best availables before any other team gets them. And at the same time, rebuild your defense. Because the best you got on that team, on the defensive side, your only real players you really got are Cameron Wake and Brent Grimes. You need a safety. You need a second corner. You really need 2 safeties, both a free safety and a strong safety. I think you need to go strong safety. And you need at least 2 or 3 players for for the linebackers. You need an outside lineman, you need an inside linebacker, you need a middle linebacker. Replace them all. They all can't do it. And like I said, if you're crazy enough to move up in the draft, get yourself situated better. Personally, that's what I think should happen. I'm not going to go any further than that. Thank you, Blog Talk Radio. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you for the great slideshow that people can see on both YouTube and BTR, because I will be putting them up of the respective teams here. But what do you think? I think the Bucs get better. The Dolphins are a question mark. They can get better, but the only way they're going to get better is if they go better than 10-6 and go to the playoffs at this point, because everything is on the line for Joe Philbin at this point. With that being said, I am done. I am through talking. Good luck to Lovie Smith and Joe Philbin. Give me the feedback of what you think. Thanks for listening.